Welcome to week 5. You've made it through the midterm exam, and most of you all did very well on the midterm. I was looking over it, and it seemed like most of the questions you did very well on. And the grade that you have in the course is a pretty good indication of where you are overall. One thing that I want to remind you all about is the written assignment that is due in week 6. It will be graded based on academic standards, and you're using your in-text citations and the final citations, maintaining an academic tone throughout, which means not using contractions, staying in the third person, using legal terminology, using an academic tone. That just means that you're writing it as though you're writing to other scholars, that you're writing to other experts in the field so that they understand it, and you're explaining as you go along. I also want to point out, I know we're just in week 5, but in week 8, this course will end Thursday, 12/12 at noon. All work must be submitted Thursday by noon. I'm going to be putting the grades in on Friday morning, so I just want you guys to make sure that you have your work into me by Thursday, December the 12th. So I don't know that's 3 weeks away, but still I wanted to point that out now so everybody's got a good head notice of when the course will end. So looking at the content for this week, the first thing I want to do is go up here to the written assignment and remind you that you need to have 5 sources. You can get those sources from the UC library. And I put a breakdown in here just to kind of give you all an idea of how to break down a larger paper. You need an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. It needs to be in Times New Roman, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, double-spaced, title on the page, and you need to use consistent citation throughout. That means that you use MLA format for your in-text citations and your full citations at the end of the paper. Same with APA. Any format, either one of those formats, you have to be consistent. You can't mix those up. Academic integrity, this needs to be your own work. Plagiarism will not be tolerated, and the use of AI will not be tolerated. This needs to be your writing based upon the content that you find from your sources. I talked about in previous videos how to work on the paper. Just wanted to remind you again that you're going to be working, let me get to the question for you, talking about how various components of the law contribute to internal conflicts within the legal system. That's talking about looking at statutes and common law and people that are putting it into place and how we need clarity and continuity when working through that. Looking at how different legal sources sometimes lead to varying applications of the law in different contexts or jurisdictions. So here, think about how one law may be, using abortion as an example, different in a state that has changed their state rules on who can get an abortion and when, how different states are handling that, how the executive branch is handling it, how people on the outside looking in are looking at the issue. So you're going to take an issue of the law and you're going to look at the state laws, the common law, which is court-made law, the constitutions, the U.S. Constitution, state constitutions, and administrative law, and look at how different views can create conflicts and how that it is being worked through. All right, to this week's material in particular, we are switching over to criminal case law. I know several students wait all semester to get to criminal law. And for those of you who've had my other classes, you have seen this Life of a Case video before. It is a wonderful thing to watch again at this point because you saw it early on when you were in law and legal education, and now that you are in a higher level class where we're looking at how things work, it's really important to think about that civil procedure and criminal procedure again. This is a life of a case based on a car accident, so it's taking it from that perspective. So it's just a really good refresher now that you've matured in your academic process to watch it again and listen to it and see what you've learned along the way that you can apply differently now. And then you had the weekly video and the PowerPoint. You do have a discussion post this week. Let me open that up. And we're talking about judicial term limits and judicial removal. This is a hot topic right now, and it's something that people in the legal community look at and frame the issue differently than a lay person might. I've had students in my American government class say that we should do a popular election for all of our judges, including the Supreme Court, every 4 years. But when you look at it through a legal lens, it's really easy to find flaws with that. We don't really want our judges to be part of the political process. That's why it's been separated as a different branch, removed from elections, removed from politics. But the concept of term limits is something that is really interesting and I think should be considered by everyone in the legal field to see what we think about this. Where do we fall on this? So looking at the courts, look at the proposed changes to having term limits, age restrictions, or additional qualifications on justices, particularly at the Supreme Court level. Then we're going to consider judicial independence versus accountability. How the balance between maintaining independence and ensuring accountability work in the court system. How would term limits or age restrictions affect this? Or you can talk about the motivation behind efforts to remove judges. Is it political? Is it public perception? Is it a practical consideration? Why is this something that we're talking about? You only need to answer 2 of those questions. It needs to be written as though it is an academic paper, citing to your textbook or to the other materials in the class. There's a lot to consider when you're looking at this, and you could consider getting an outside source from the library when talking about this, because there's just a wealth of new information out there. And it's something that is so important for us to be thinking about how we want our courts to operate, how we want our judges to be selected, for how long, for any other stipulations that we want to put on that. If you have any questions when you're working on your discussion post or your written assignment, please don't hesitate to email me and we can set up a virtual meeting. Have a great week.